What exactly is spiritual metaphysics, which takes us into a beginning of a new mini-series on spiritual metaphysics and how things unfold in due time? Spiritual therapy, what really is that? Spiritual healing prayers, do they really work? Spiritual healing and self-healing in and of itself. A Course in Miracles opens up the window for us to really understand how we're all interconnected. And really, spiritual metaphysics basically means that it's our awareness that we are somehow, all of us, connected together. Hey everyone, James Nussbaumer, and thanks for joining me in another episode of Everyday Miracles Moment on Video. And wow, I am excited about this session today. So bear with me on the end of your seat, because I'm gonna ask you to put your thinking cap on, but let it flow through you. I'm gonna share a quick story with you on to help you more understand spiritual metaphysics and our interconnectedness. But by the way, as you're listening to me, keep in mind that in the description area down below here at YouTube is a lot of information I'm providing you with some access links to wonderful material to help you more clearly understand spiritual metaphysics. And also, I hope that you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Twitter and Facebook as well. But whatever it is that I had briefly mentioned must have stuck like glue in his mind as sort of a self-healing type of, or spiritual therapy kind of a thing, we could say. Spiritual metaphysics. Let me explain. I do remember closing a letter to him with a brief quote, with a brief principle quote from the Course in Miracles, and that's all it was. I didn't want to push A Course in Miracles on him. My intention was only to pass along a healthy, spiritual, healing quote. Now I could see it all unfolding. Let me explain. I was learning more and more naturally about spiritual metaphysics and wholeness and how it finds us. By the way, before I continue now with the rest of the story, keep in mind that I've written a detailed blog article at my website on spiritual metaphysics and understanding the underlying reality of what and who we truly are. And by the way, the link to that blog article is also down below in the description area. So let me go on to say that, let me add that Joel, who I'd never met, who had found me while I was in prison, for those of you that know my story, Joel had found me on a pen pal list and began writing me. Joel was a principal cellist of a 12 cellist. A cellist is a cello player. It was a large symphony orchestra here in the United States. Joel was the primary cellist. In performance, all the cellists, the other cello players, keep their focus on the principal and his movements, so they can all, Joel as the principal is the one cellist who keeps his focus on the conductor, and this is how they all stay in unison. And so as I rested on my top bunk there in the volatile and often violent din and chaotic noise-filled dungeon of the cell block, we can say, as I lie flat on my back, I was in total awe of what was happening. Motionless, to say the least. I then read on in a letter from Nikita, a woman of Croatia, who'd been writing to me as well, and I never understood how she had gotten my address all the way from Croatia. Well, she was in Boston on business and had something to do with her putting together a worldwide center for peace and wellness on her property, which would help educate and help the homeless and the shelterless and the starving and the hunger, among other programs. Joel, who had just met Nakita while on her trip to Boston and on other trips that she had made in the USA, perfect strangers to one another, Joel shared my name, my situation, and prison address. Well, let me say that a portion of her many acres in the hills several miles outside of Split, Croatia, was destined to be a successful model for peace and for forgiveness and for fun too. And she added that, by the way, keep in mind, she had been writing me several times, keeping me motivated, and also was somehow involved in A Course in Miracles. Well, that story is detailed in book 3 of my series. But anyways, Nikita then asked, and one of the last times I've heard from her, she asked if I enjoyed skiing or playing golf. Of course I do. Nikita was limited and careful as to how she was telling me about her plans for this thing, this center that she was making on her property. But it seemed in her description of the plans that it was going to be something fun and exciting, and but it seemed as though she didn't want to let the cat out of the bag, so she was careful in how she was explaining it to me. But she did extend an open invitation for me to visit someday, and she insisted that that would be soon. How she would ever know the plans of the early release after 8 long years, I was being released from prison, but she seemed to somehow know that. Her loving message has deeply touched me and was a soothing balm, I can say, to my life under the oppression of prison life. I felt a rush of energy that warmed me inside as if I were blushing all over, and if my eyes were filled literally with tears. We could call that a holy relationship, as the Course in Miracles terms it. The holy relationship was being brought forward in my mind, her mind, and Joel's mind, the cello player. I hope that you can piece that together and understand a little bit about spiritual metaphysics and our interconnectedness and how we all seem to work together on spiritual healing and overall healing for the purpose of humanity. By the way, this story is detailed in book 3 of the series called And Then I Knew My Abundance. I hope that you'll check that out. As always, I hope you're thinking a lot about your own life and all the inner beauty and all the inner beauty in you, the inner beauty in me, and the inner beauty in everyone you run into. That inner beauty is an inner connection we have with one another, and that we can say is spiritual metaphysics. Until next time, as always, God bless.